right, well, thanks for coming by. Today, I'm going to start to replenish my pewter stash or stack. I find myself working more and more with pewter. I really like the properties of it, the way it flows, the ease of melting. So, what I do, I've got a box here that I got the other day. You just have to be careful. If you get it from somebody who knows what pewter is and they're not including a bunch of Armatel or stuff that is a aluminum alloy, you can't use that. And sometimes that stuff will get mixed in with pewter. Sometimes they'll give you some silver plate, which is brass plated with pewter. So it's just you have to be careful. I have made some bad purchases in the recent past and gotten burned a few times, but I'm getting better at it. Just be careful about, there are some telltale signs. One of them is, a good scrapper is going to squash this stuff and make it flat and easier to ship. So if it bends by the hand or is flattened out, you're pretty sure it's pewter. Now, if this was Armatel or Pewterex or something like that, the aluminum alloy, you try to bend it, it will break. So, it's just a word to the wise. You'll get burned a couple of times if you're not careful. So, all this stuff is squashed flat. I got pieces in here, and who cares? It's all going to get melted down anyway. So, these plates and bowls and handles and little parts of things. Looks like a key. Oh, I don't care. Anyway, so that's what we're going to do. We're going to melt this stuff down and produce little ingots. Now, my ingot melting, I'm working with like 4 different types of metal. I'm working with lead. This is the wheel weight lead. It just requires taking a big batch of wheel weights and melting it down, isolating the zinc wheel weights, which are these, after processing. So when I pour, I try to get different molds so I know at a glance exactly what it is. So I know that this is my regular hard lead wheel weights. Okay. Now the soft lead, which is the strips that are adhered to the wheels, that is pure lead. Okay. This wheel weight lead is mixed with some other things. It's not pure lead. So subsequently, the melting point of this is a little bit lower because of the extra additives. And so I do these little squares. So I know that's my soft, pure lead. And like I said, my zinc, I pour into these little muffins here. So I pick it up. I know this one is zinc. And my pewter, what I'm making are these little donuts. All right, they're kind of cute. Anyway, the point is to pour them in different forms so that you know at a glance what they are, and also that they will fit easily into a small crucible. Either one of my handheld ones can fit in there. So you want to break it down into a form that's easily worked with. All right, so that is what we're going to focus on today and making. So in order to do that, we've got to get this pot and torch cranked up. And what I do, I get me a hot plate and we crank it up all the way. Now that will help once you start getting the pewter melted. That'll help maintain that heat while you're transferring from the pot to the mold. And the mold I have are these little donut molds. All right, so that's what we're going to pour it into. Here's a piece of bent up pewter. You can see, like I said, it's easily bent and manipulated. And if you can't do that, chances are it's not pewter. Okay, so you bend it up some, throw it in the pot. All right, so the second heat source, I'm going to use the hot plate. If you worked on it long enough, it'll probably melt it, but you want to supplement that heat. I've got this torch here that will bring that heat up more uniformly, and you'll end up with a nice pot of pewter. So delaying lighting it because it does make some noise, so we'll have a little bit of interference with that. Yeah, it's not too loud. All right, so we get that going. Let's get this pot filled up with some melted pewter. Like I said, I've got all kinds of different pieces, and one thing always to look for, if you can, is where it actually says the word pewter. All right, it doesn't say that. Now it's not 100%, but if it says pewter, it probably is. And the pieces that are not pewter are going to say something else. RWP is a mark used by Wilton, and you'll see a lot of Wilton stuff out there. You'll see Country Place and a few other makers. That RWP, just don't even look at it. It's an aluminum alloy. All right, here's one. And my lighting, okay, says pewter. All right, and like I said, you can bend this stuff. All right, now I get all kinds of different pieces. There are some really cool cups and things like that. And some people, myself included, are a little squeamish about destroying something. But you know, my stash of pewter is more important. Now, if it's a really cool piece, I may hang on to it for a while, but eventually it's going to get melted. So, as you can see, this pot is, the torch is making short work of the thin pewter. And I'm going to get a couple of inches of pewter in the bottom of this pot, and we'll start skimming it off and pouring some donuts. Yeah, never know what you're going to find in your box, but pewter's pewter. I may hang on to that for a little while. That's kind of cool. I like rabbits. All right, all this goes in there. Yeah, little pieces, little pewter jewelry. Eh, little vase, little busted pieces. You'll find all kinds of stuff. And, you know, if it's not pewter, there might be a screw or some other attachment buried in uh, some of these pieces, and it'll just float to the top, just like doing wheel weights, where the steel clips end up floating to the top. Yeah, it's pewter, and it bends. When we get down to the bottom of this particular box, And again, I mean, and you can tell by looking at it, it's all bent up that this is pewter. And if it's too big to fit in the pot and you bent it as much as you can, you use the torch to just basically cut it in half. Some of the older pieces are not marked. I do not see a mark on this thing anywhere. But again, you can see somebody tested it here. It melted. So it's this a thick, heavy piece of pewter. All right. What does that say? Wallace pewter and then a number. And then you see somebody had it in a thrift store, it looks like $1.70 for, who knows? It doesn't weigh a whole lot. Cool stuff. I love it. You're going to melt it. Let's get the pot filled up. Here we go. All right, so eventually we'll end up having to put our gloves on because everything on this bench is going to end up getting hot. So you end up grabbing it with some kind of other tool. Like I said, if you want to cut one in half, make it fit in the pot. All right, so the only other thing you'll need is some type of a spoon or something. This spoon works out really well. For me, it's for just the right size. But you'll need something to scrape the top off. All that oxidation from these old pieces, that's what gets on the top here. So what I always try to do, you push this over where you can see it, I kind of congregate everything into a little pile here, and you can tamp it down, try to get as much of the pewter out of it as you can. Okay, just keep it into a little wad, and then I slowly start to press it up against the side of the pot, and that kind of squishes even more of the pewter out, and you're going to end up with just a little pile of ash. Okay. All right. So the other thing is to just get a metal pan or something to discard that into. All Alright, so there's no waste in this dross here at all. It's all this ash. Alright. Alright, so let's go ahead and pour some of these guys. Let the ladle get heated up. I could use a little more, but I can pour enough to get the idea. Let the ladle sit in there for a second.
Do it. Do it now.
Alright, so anyway, I'm going to pour these, let them freeze, and then we're going to walk over to my little deposition area and dump them out and let them cool, do another one, so forth and so on. Anyway, let's see if I can do this without making a mess. Yeah, I know I'm kind of anal about getting these poured right, but it always looks best. And I have to mention here, I've got my garage door open and I'm kind of on a busy street and the car's going by, so I apologize. Oops. See, for the road noise. Now, if I use the Lee production pot, I do a much neater job of pouring these guys. All right. We'll let that freeze up and we'll dump them out. Okay. Now this is the first pan here, so sometimes they're a little hard to get them to come out. And it's still pretty hot. Alright, so I got a grated metal chair here, and that makes a good place to dump these out. Yeah, all but one. There it is. Okay, anyway. That's how we do that. Let's do another one. Alright, let's get a close look at pouring into the ingot mold. Here we go. We're going to let them freeze up here and tap it every now and then, and it kind of shrinks the ingot away from the sides of the mold. If I just let it cool all the way, they don't come out as easy as I'd like. You see, when I tap it, the crystallization kind of takes a jump, and that's just a little bit of shrinkage away from the pan. I think. I'm not sure, but it works. Alright, that takes about a full minute or a minute and a half. You want it to completely solidify. Otherwise, when you dump it out, it kind of crumbles if it's not quite done yet. So, let's see if I can do this one-handed. I know this thing is hot. Woohoo! There's all 9 of them. And then these are ready to go into the pot. And we keep going till we're done.